Good morning. This TechNet Augusta Conference Symposium just gets better every year. The amount of participation from the community and vendors is just awesome. General Woods, thank you for the introduction. On behalf of Lieutenant General Cardone and the entire Army Cyber Command and 2nd Army team, I want to thank AFCEA for another great program and for the opportunity to meet with the key stakeholders of the signal, cyber, and electronic warfare communities. Of course, it is a great to be back in Augusta in the Fort Gordon area, and as General Wood said, the future home of Army Cyber Command. I also want to thank Mayor Hardy Davis and the greater Central Savannah River area, as always, for their warm hospitality. And of course, I want to thank Major General Steve Fogarty, the men and women of the Cyber Center of Excellence, and the entire team at Fort Gordon for their collaboration and partnership. It is really a team effort. I expect to be back here in a few months from now with all of our partners for the groundbreaking of our new headquarters facility on Fort Gordon, Georgia. The contract should be let this month, and we should break ground in November. And Army Cyber Command should move here in fiscal year 2020, less than 4 years from now. Awesome, awesome that is preceding the great investment by the Army. Today, I want to talk about the progress the Army has made over the last 6 years, and then look ahead to the next 6 years, to what is possible, both opportunities and challenges. A little less than 6 years ago, Army Cyber Command was stood up with a handful of determined people and given the task to operationalize a new domain for the Army. When you stop to think about it, what the Army has accomplished in cyberspace in 6 short years is nothing less than remarkable. 6 years ago, in 2010, the Army had no cyber branch, no cyber center of excellence, no joint force headquarters cyber, no cyber mission force, no unified mission command construct, no regional cyber centers, and no comprehensive strategy. We didn't start with a total blank slate, more like a loose collection of organizations operating across the Army networks, working furiously, but in a stovepipe manner, particularly to stem against the rising tide of the ever-evolving cyber threats. Threats growing in complexity due to sophistication of readily available tools, which is lowering the entry to barrier. When U.S. Cyber Command was established in 2009, and later when Army Cyber Command was stood up in 2010, many people equated the enormous challenges of securing DoD networks and operationalizing cyberspace to building an airplane in flight, as you may have heard it was mentioned yesterday. The aviation metaphor is not without merit. The last time the Army operationalized a new domain, the air domain, was back in 1907, when the Army bought its first airplane. Interestingly, the airplane was put under the control of the Signal Corps because it was primarily seen as a new platform for observation across the battlefield. Back then, like today, the Signal Corps was pivotal in bringing the Army into a new era of warfare. Interestingly, the Air Signal Corps became the bridge between two domains, between land and air in 1907 and between land and cyberspace today. I don't know if Lieutenant General Hernandez, as the first commander of Army Cyber Command, can relate to this or not, but in 1909, Brigadier General James Allen, the chief signal officer, summoned Lieutenant Benjamin Fouloy, the Army's first pilot, to his office to tell him that he was to become the sole flyer of Signal Corps Airplane Number 1. Allen's instructions to Lieutenant Fouloy were simple. Take plenty of spare parts and teach yourself how to fly. Which was not unlike what we have to do. Figure out how to operationalize this new domain and take advantage of its opportunities while simultaneously defending it against a formidable array of determined adversaries. It would take decades for Army aviation to accomplish what we are well underway to accomplish in 6 short years. To operationalize a new domain, build a new operational force, develop a new organizational construct, integrate new tactics, techniques, and procedures for driving on operations, and organize, train, and equip a force which today is persistently engaged in operations and making a difference around the globe. So the Army has made tremendous progress since 2010. I want to put that progress in perspective of three major areas: people, capability, and operations. First of all, people. From the beginning, the Army recognized that people are the most important part of cyber. The Army has been committed to building a world-class cyberspace operations force second to none, and we've done just that. We currently have 18 cyber mission force teams at full operational capability, and we're on track to meet our goal to have all 41 active Army Cyber Mission Force teams at initial operational capability or better by this September. The Army also recognized that we already have a superb signal corps operating, maintaining, and defending our networks, and they would be crucial to all of our efforts. Most importantly, the Army realized that we needed to invest in people by giving them the best education and training possible and providing incentives to retain the best people. The Army began by identifying soldiers with key cyber skills to meet our needs and to build upon. The Army then authorized new incentives to recruit and retain this soldier talent. The Army then did something unprecedented. It developed a new cyber branch, the first branch in nearly 30 years, and brought it online in less than a year. The Cyber Center of Excellence has been the driving force behind the new branch and a key partner in our cyber's efforts to operationalize cyberspace for the Army. In May, the Cyber School graduated the first class of Cyber Branch lieutenants. This year, the school began training captains, warrant officers, and non-commissioned officers. Early next year, the first enlisted advanced individual training class will begin. The Cyber COE and the Cyber School have done great work building the branch. However, none of the tremendous progress we made would have been possible without the support of the Signal Corps and the Military Intelligence Corps, who gave us their A-team to help build the curriculum and provide the foundation to develop the cyber workforce. While the Cyber COE took on building the branch, the Army also recognized that it needed to build its intellectual capital in this new domain. So it established the Army Cyber Institute at West Point to help develop thought leaders for cyberspace. The Army Cyber Institute and the Cyber Center of Excellence represent some of the incredible investments in people and the supporting organizations the Army has made during a time of declining budgets. We still have a ways to go as we need to develop similar training and retention programs for the civilian component of the cyber workforce. The Army has also made unity of effort in cyberspace a priority and took a major step towards unifying cyberspace operational forces a few weeks ago when the Secretary of the Army signed the order designating Army Cyber Command as an Army Service Component Command. This brings our cyber's roles and authorities in line with other ASCCs, such as U.S. Army Europe or U.S. Army Special Operations Command, and is a major milestone towards providing unity of command for cyberspace operations in support of and fully integrated with U.S. Cyber Command, while also leading the cyberspace domain for the Army. Unity of effort is also critical to the development of cyberspace capabilities, whether in support of Department of Defense Information Networks, or DoDIN, which we've heard used many times yesterday. Also, defensive cyberspace operations and offensive cyberspace operation in these three mission areas that collectively are full-spectrum cyberspace operations. This brings me to the second area where the Army has made tremendous progress, delivering our cyberspace capabilities. From the DoDIN operations perspective, our top priorities have been developing a more defensible network and modernizing it to keep pace with growing demands for connectivity, bandwidth, availability, and of course, security. In partnership with the Army CIO G6, our Cyber and Second Army and the tremendous NETCOM and PEO Enterprise Information System team have been leading the effort to modernize the Army's networked information technology capabilities and improve cybersecurity. Our efforts are improving bandwidth and reliability for enhanced mission effectiveness, reducing our attack surface areas, upgrading our defensive capabilities, and creating cost savings and improving security by collapsing networks. While the implementation of enterprise services like enterprise email and the Joint Regional Security Stacks initiative, the Army has made great strides towards the concept of a joint information environment and a single, secure, and more agile joint network. With the introduction of the cyber protection teams, we also generated new operational needs for dedicated and secure DCO infrastructure that complements network modernization to defend against the most advanced persistent threats. Underlying our infrastructure efforts is improving our situational understanding of what's happening on our networks, with our data, and with our systems. We continue to develop analytical capabilities to fuel improved situational understanding and advanced visualizations to enable operators and decision makers to reason about the cyberspace domain just as we do in the land domain. Some of the technology components of our extensive development efforts include network mapping, big data analytics, automated planning, endpoint security, software-defined networking, advanced virtualization, identity management, and distributed cloud infrastructure. As a result of these efforts, our signal and cyber forces are better able to operate and defend the Army's portion of the DoDN than we were 6 years ago, but we all recognize we have lots more to do. Improving the Army's cyber capabilities also requires an agile and responsive acquisition process. Early on, the Army realized that its 20th century acquisition processes didn't keep up with rapidly changing technologies and constantly evolving cyber threats. So another priority has been to reduce the time from capability development to operational use. One of the ways we have done this is by better defining and prioritizing our operational requirements. Working with our key cyber stakeholders this year, we produced the Army's first Cyberspace Acquisition Requirements and Resourcing Annual Plan. Our plan defines priorities based on emerging threats and current operational requirements through 3 goals: equip Army Cyber Mission Force, provide additional cyberspace operational capability to corps and below commanders, and turn rapidly developed, demonstrated, and evaluated prototypes into capabilities that our soldiers and civilians can put to mission as we quickly build the teams and are putting them on mission. To help in this process, we also began using other transaction agreements to bring non-traditional vendors into the acquisition process under the Army's Cyber Innovation Challenge series. Our first Cyber Challenge resulted in delivery of advanced prototype deployable cloud-based toolkits for the Army cyber protection teams. The lessons learned from our teams will inform the forthcoming program of record that'll be run by PEOEIS. Meanwhile, we built upon the success of that inaugural challenge and partnered with the DoD Silicon Valley Point of Preference, the Defense Innovation Unit Experimental, this past spring, to bring additional DCO infrastructure management technology into our arsenal. Other ongoing challenge topics include risk calculation and visualization, and operations management and orchestration. In parallel, we are driving hard on bringing cyber capabilities to tactical Army units within our Cyber Support to Corps and Below initiative, which is experimenting with units as they rotate through our combat training centers to educate Army commanders and staffs on the power of tactical cyber capabilities and to inform future force design. The Cyber Support to Corps and Below initiative is instrumental to the full integration of cyberspace operations into the unified land operations and informing possible changes in doctrine, organization, training, material, logistics, personnel, facilities, and policies, or as we all know so well as .mil PFP. Currently, at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California, for the first time we are experimenting with the integration of a team that includes electronic warfare, information operations, and cyber operations soldiers into a brigade combat team. As a matter of fact, today at Fort Irwin, soldiers from our cyber are in the box augmenting the 1st Brigade of the 1st Armored Brigade Combat Team and the Iron Horse Opposing Force with cyber and electronic warfare capabilities. The lessons learned at this rotation will inform cyber warfighting gaps across the Army. The current effort, which we've been supporting in partnership with the Cyber Center of Excellence and other TRADOC COEs, as well as Forces Command, is looking to find the optimal balance of organic and expeditionary cyberspace capabilities to accomplish commanders' objectives at the corps level and below. Like our other cyber electromagnetic or CEMA activities, this effort also seizes, retains, and exploits advantages in cyberspace. But this effort takes place in brigade combat team tactical operation centers and in division planning cells in operationally relevant environments to directly support decisive action. This leads me to the third area I want to talk about, operations, more specifically, DoDIN operations. As Major General Fogarty has said, DoDIN operations are the most complex and important mission DoD conducts. Today, the DoDIN is no longer just a critical enabler. It is the operational platform for cyberspace operations and, in fact, for military operations. I'd say that again, the DoDIN is the operational platform for military operations. So while unity of effort across cyberspace is key, unifying operational control of all Army cyber forces to include appropriate signal, intelligence, and cyber units is vital to operating, maintaining, securing, and defending the Army's portion of the DoDIN. I am sure no one here would argue the fact that our Army relies on the DoDIN for everything from day-to-day business processes to combat operations, for mission command and every other warfighting function. With that in mind, I offer these three fundamental truths about the Army's portion of the DoDIN. First truth, DoDIN operations are fundamental to the way our military operates and fights. There isn't a warfighting function that isn't impacted by cyber, so securing, operating, and defending the Army portion of the DoDIN is a core warfighting capability. Second truth, the vast majority of DoD's operations in cyberspace are defensive operations. DoD estimates there are 16 million attempted intrusions of the DoDIN each year, or about 43,000 every day. We don't do anywhere that number of offensive operations. Third truth, the network is foundational to cyberspace operations. It is our operational platform for offensive and defensive cyberspace operations, so securing and defending the DoDIN is key, and there is no disputing that fact. It is important to remember that Army Unified Land Operations combine offensive, defensive, stability elements, and defense support of civil authorities, executed simultaneously at multiple echelons, which must be coordinated, synchronized, and integrated. Operations in cyberspace require similar control. DoDIN operations cannot be done in isolation from defensive operations or from other operations happening in the same domain. You can't treat them as separate, unrelated activities. Because cyberspace cuts across all warfighting domains, all cyberspace operations, both offensive and defensive, also need to be synchronized and integrated into the combined arms fight and all military operations. So where do we go from here over the next 6 years? Over the last 6 years, we have seen rapid, wide-ranging, and operationally impactful change. I believe the next 6 years we will see a different but no less significant type of change. Up until now, we were about building forces, massing combat power through people, capabilities, and operations, mostly at the strategic and the operational levels. We built a cyber force and built significant organizational, institutional structure and processes. We've been laying the foundation for a more secure network, and we developed important relationships with industry, academia, and across the Army. The next 6 years will be about leveraging these achievements to create operational effects on a scale constrained only by our imagination and our old ways of thinking. First, people. By 2022, again, 6 years looking ahead, headquarters of Army Cyber Command and 2nd Army, along with our Joint Force Headquarters Cyber, will be integrated at Fort Gordon, Georgia, at full operational capability, conducting full spectrum cyberspace operations. Through the power of proximity, we will have forged habitual, operationally grounded relationships with partners at the National Security Agency, Georgia, and the Cyber Center of Excellence. As we make Fort Gordon our new home, we will help to anchor a growing community of IT and cybersecurity professionals and develop new partnerships with academia and industry, not only in the central Savannah River area, but across the Southeast region. Our ability to attract and retain the best people is critical to the growth of cyberspace capabilities. 6 years from now, the Cyber Branch and Cyber Mission Force will have cyber manning and human resources strategies for the entire cyber workforce, both military and civilian. The 4 pillars of that HR strategy will be recruit, train, manage, and retain. And we will truly have in place the ability to do talent management, much more than the traditional Army transactional talent management, but truly about talent management. How do we grow those next leaders? The Army will lead the development and establishment of the cyber persistent training environment for the DoD. The Cyber PTE will provide scenarios, event management, and access for high-quality individual and collective training and mission rehearsal capabilities for our cyber mission forces at the time and place of need for all force services and for U.S. Cyber Command. The Army was recently designated as the lead by the Deputy Secretary of Defense for this. And resources start flowing in FY17 for this. In the near future, Army formations will be organized and ready to conduct cyberspace operations supporting the Army and the Joint Force and aligning through the global force management process. The Army Cyber Force is a total force, and Army National Guard and U.S. Army Reserve cyber warriors will be integrated into the operational force, as we will have 21 reserve component teams to add to the 41 active component teams in the Army's portion of the Cyber Mission Force. I want to talk about our capabilities 6 years from now in terms of where I think they will be and also the challenges we need industry to help us with. I believe one of the biggest advances we will see in our capabilities is the convergence of Army networks. NIPRNet, CIPRNet, and JWICS into one DoDN, operated, maintained, and defended by the Signal Corps. So the Signal Corps will not only be the highly relevant, it will be essential to everything that occurs on and across the DoDN. Another major advance will be the full implementation of our network modernization. We are already seeing progress under the Joint Regional Security Stack Initiative, a major component of the single security architecture. Under JRSS, DoD is replacing about 1,000 legacy network security stacks with 48 standardized stacks at 25 locations around the world, consolidating and improving the security of currently disparate networks. The JRSS provides foundational elements for enhanced situational understandings, one of our critical capability gaps. The JRSS gives us sensors that enable us to see and defend the DoDN like never before. Complementing JRSS with a dedicated and secure DCO infrastructure and big data analytics technology, we are poised to achieve unprecedented levels of DoDN and DCO integration to enable the warfighter to conduct operations while defeating cyber threats. The implementation of JRSS and multi-protocol label switching, or MPLS, is also allowing us to increase bandwidth significantly, critical towards moving to a cloud-based and virtualized architecture. Cloud services will enhance warfighter mobility, providing on-demand, secure global access to data and enterprise services, enabling home station mission command, where Army forces will be able to plug into the same networks they use at their home station anywhere in the world. Another major advancement will be in the adoption of new types of multi-factor authentication that could include applying biometric-based identity authentication systems at the enterprise and tactical levels. Coupled with endpoint security, we will improve user efficiency and increase our situational understanding of everything and everyone that is on or accessing our network. In the future, we should continue to expect evolutions in platform security, cloud capabilities, and the nature of the network. Virtual, wireless, mobile, advanced encryption, and advanced computing will continue to evolve and disrupt, and data encryption will become the norm. More importantly, to bring the collective power of all cyber capabilities to the combined arms fight will require the integration of electronic warfare, signal, information operations, intelligence, and fires capabilities to deliver operational effects to our commanders. The integration of cyberspace operations is important to our success. As General Fogarty said yesterday, we need to eliminate cultural barriers and stovepipes between branches and organize around missions and tasks driven by operations. Again, that is an absolutely key thing. Eliminate cultural barriers and stovepipes between branches and organize around missions and tasks and driven by operations. Key to the integration of cyberspace operations across all formations is the collaboration that must occur between the G and the S staffs, the 2, the 3, the 6, electronic warfare officer, the IO officer, the fire support officer, and their respective sections. And for those that attended this TechNet last year may remember General Fogarty whiteboarding this very concept that has been further matured by the COE. Giving equal attention to the training and capabilities development of all cyber forces will be key to achieving convergence. That includes our total force component team members in the Army Reserve and the National Guard. To move towards collaboration in a common operating environment, to convergence in an integrated information environment, will require achieving unity of effort across DoDIN operations, defensive cyberspace operations, and offensive cyberspace operations, which is why unity of effort is also a major objective of the Army Cyberspace Strategy for Unified Land Operations 2025. True convergence across the Army, however, will only happen when we make the intellectual leap it will take to accept the operational environment and the information environment as one and the same. The main obstacle that we must overcome and take the lead in dismantling are the stovepipes that exist within the information environment and between the information environment and the operational environment. As the Army grows its capabilities in cyberspace, it will need to continue to leverage industry's advances in cloud and mobile technology and harness the innovative power of both industry and academic institutions to stay ahead of ever-changing and growing cyber threats. As more and more devices become connected to the network, in a growing Internet of Things world, platform security and mission assurance will increasingly be a major concern. We will need industry's help to improve cybersecurity throughout the supply chain and throughout the life cycle of every Army system. Network modernization will go a long way towards improving our capabilities and cybersecurity readiness. However, as you all know, no system can be 100% secure. So we need to ensure the Army can still conduct operations in a contested cyberspace environment. That's what General Hodges talked about yesterday, contested cyberspace environment. With advanced defensive capabilities that we can ensure our mission-critical systems can still operate, albeit in a degraded mode, when faced with more sophisticated threats from highly motivated adversaries. This is the concept of cyber key terrain. We also need a way to design more resilience into our networks and systems, despite the fact that we depend on commercial off-the-shelf hardware and software. How do we build resilient systems from components whose resilience characteristics may be limited or unknown? We need systems that are designed to be not only more agile and adaptive, but also more resilient and resistant and resilient to compromise. We also need to raise the stakes for attackers and deter them by making it harder to enter our systems in the first place. We need ways to make the attacker's tasks more difficult, costly, and time-consuming. We need tools that will increase the likelihood of an attacker will be detected, that will disrupt or neutralize the attacks, and that will confuse the attacker and introduce deception and unpredictability. Better tools to detect and monitor attacks and anomalous behavior to reveal intrusions and gain situational understanding to inform our responses. On the horizon, two basic trends in our emerging gaps are the need to have more capabilities that are autonomous or semi-autonomous, and the need for systems and capabilities that are more mobile and self-contained. We will need industry's help employing artificial intelligence or machine learning systems that can monitor our data, learn how we behave, so the system recognizes when an adversary is in our network, and tools that will automatically respond to changes at machine speed and free up our operators for higher priorities. Finding ways to automate threat discovery, reporting, and eradication in autonomous, semi-autonomous ways to find advanced, persistent threats within our network sooner are critical. The need for more mobility at the tactical edge will continue to grow, and we will need industry to help us with secure networking capabilities in joint and coalition environments. The network must evolve to provide our commanders with real-time information to support their decision-making. Capabilities that decrease the time it takes to gather data, transform it into high-quality information, validate it, and present it in a way that supports operational decisions are paramount. Operationally, over the next 6 years, the Army will see many changes at the tactical level. At the brigade combat team level, our brigade commanders and their staffs are starting to be exposed to our efforts to close the gap between operational cyber capabilities and tactical applications for ground operations. In 6 years, we will have long since completed the Cyberspace Core and Below pilots, and we will be seeing the implementation of the lessons learned in the Mojave Desert and the other training centers. We will have doctrine for tactical cyberspace operations, organizational changes to fully equip staffs for cyberspace operations, and training by and through cyberspace will become normalized. An entire generation of brigade commanders will have an appreciation of how the signal, IO, EW, and cyber soldiers and civilians enable the mission command systems that support their most basic operations. Numerous rotations of National Training Center commanders will have witnessed cyberspace capabilities employed to produce first-order effects in cyberspace and, more importantly, in land operations. Moreover, those commanders will have witnessed the convergence of a dozen different networks that right now are operating independently at the brigade operations. And the change will go well beyond the talk, because it has to. If our commanders are to exercise mission command, they have to have trust, not just of their subordinates, but in their networks, their data, and their systems. We know that we cannot tolerate non-compliant networks which leave our Army more vulnerable to cyber adversaries. The network of the future will be the most secure, most agile, and most scalable network we've ever known. We're not there yet, but we will be, and the Signal Corps will lead that change. Most importantly, in the future, DODN operations, DCO, and OCO will be planned, coordinated, integrated, and synchronized to operate and defend the Army's portion of the DODN, supporting Army and combatant commands. Finally, with the right .mil PF in place, the Army will be optimally organized with all cyber capabilities supporting Army forces at all echelons. Other challenges remain, including securing the necessary resources to implement solutions across the .mil PF. Many of those solutions start with the Cyber Center of Excellence, which requires investments commensurate with its responsibilities. Affecting a cultural transformation remains our biggest challenge, biggest hurdle. That will take vision, determination, leadership, and the willingness to adapt to necessary change. However, change is nothing new to our Army. Throughout the 241-year history, the Army has had to reinvent itself many times. Our history is replete with stories of infamous naysayers who were on the wrong side of history, like the last Chief of Cavalry, who was still arguing for horse cavalry after World War II. Thankfully, the Army also had an equal number of visionaries who embraced change for the good of the service, like General Adolphus Washington Greeley, one of the pioneers of the Signal Corps. Greeley oversaw the integration of a number of disruptive technologies in the Army, including the radio, the airplane, the automobile, and electricity. Another famous signal officer, named Billy Mitchell, took disruptive technology to heart and gained a certain amount of notoriety. On July 21, 1921, Mitchell brought tears to the eyes of some of the Navy officers watching from a ship nearby as he dropped bombs from his aircraft, sinking the former German battleship Ostfriesland in the Chesapeake Bay. Mitchell demonstrated for the first time that an aircraft could be used offensively to sink a battleship. That day, Mitchell created a major paradigm shift in warfare. Throughout our history, disruptive technologies have profoundly changed the Army and help transform it into the greatest fighting force the world has ever known. Today, the opportunities and challenges of cyberspace are driving another transformation across our Army. I ask all of you to accept the challenge of integrating a new maneuver force into the combined arms fight and to be agents of change across the Army to help ensure America's Army remains the world's dominant fighting force on land and in cyberspace. Thank you. And I think we have a time for a couple questions, but one question.
Good morning, sir. I'll be asking the question from back here. It's coming in over email. Sir, you mentioned incentives to recruit and retain cyber soldiers with special aptitude for our cyber mission. Other critical DoD positions are incentivized with bonuses in an attempt to retain talent, such as doctors or special pay for airborne, as two examples. How are we planning to incentivize these critical cyber personnel for a lifetime of service, considering we are arming them with a set of skills that are highly lucrative in the private sector?
Yeah, it's actually, people is our most critical element, and that's spot on, and that's a challenge we're dealing with today very much. It is a true competition for talent, not only within the Army, across the DoD, across the federal workspace, but obviously with industry, because it's just as important for Bank of America on their brand and what they're doing with protecting themselves on operations. So the cyber branch is a major piece because we can identify specific recruitment, re-enlistment, retention bonuses, but also in work roles. And the Army has very strongly supported us in that, and that is happening. We're also engaged across with the other services in DoD to possibly create a new cyber accepted service workforce for civilians. And that'll allow us to better target that workforce and accepted service versus competitive service. And again, this is for cyberspace effects, not for the general cybersecurity. But you can then do rank in person, not rank in position, and you can better manage and really identify what the talent is. This is absolutely, people is the most important element of this discussion, and how we recruit, train, manage, and retain people is absolutely critical in this mission space. It is our number one thing that we're focused on, and we're getting great support out of the Army on working our way through this. So again, thank you.
That was our final question. Please welcome back Lieutenant General Bob Wood to the stage to thank him on behalf of AFCEA.